In the middle of the night, a man walks up to two hookers, looking for his daughter. He can't understand why he's a former boxing champ, rich as hell, but his 14-year-old daughter has fallen into this prostitute path. Turns out she was kidnapped. The cops searched the whole city. News was all over the front page, but they couldn't find her. Back then, things were crazy. The mafia ran everything. Sex trade was everywhere. They didn't just go after girls and women, they even took boys. When the ex-boxer finally found his daughter, she was dead. But the next morning he got a call, and it was his daughter's voice. So, was she alive or dead? What the heck is going on? Find out in the movie. In Russia, the mafia is like a shadow. They hang out in nightclubs and bars. The more money you spend, the better and cleaner the girl you can get. This guy, who looks like a smart dude, politely takes a drink from a beautiful woman. Then he secretly adds some clear liquid to it. He keeps an eye on the security guards and finally finds the guy he's waiting for. The guy nods and the man heads up the stairs. After they made sure he wasn't carrying any weapons, the bodyguard led him to the VIP room to meet the boss. The man said the right password between him and the boss, then asked for a boy for an hour. The boss told his guys to bring the goods for the customer to check. But as he was about to hand over the boy, the boss got a warning call from his men. The top assassin in Russia had snuck into their club to rescue a kid. The boss calmly looked a man in the eye. His guys rushed the kid into the room, the guy behind him holding a rope, ready to strike. Realizing he was caught, the man threw his poisoned drink at the guy. In a flash, he grabbed a knife from the table and turned into a different person. He went on a rampage, killing every gangster in the room. Even the big guys and the reinforcements couldn't handle him. The guy was a professional killer, a master with a knife. He took them all out in a blink of an eye, even the bodyguard guarding the kid. The boy was a rich kid. His mom paid a fortune to hire the top assassin to save him. They both carefully snuck out. The man blew up the whole place and rode off on a motorcycle with the boy, safe and sound. That man was Samson, the top assassin of Russia. Samson had never failed a mission before, but last night he made a fatal mistake. He entered a lair of demons who also trapped angels. The explosion had destroyed everything, including innocent girls trapped there. Samson hadn't considered that. Guilt washed over him, taking away his courage, making him unable to continue his work. The once famous assassin decided to hang up his gloves, retire, and become a butcher. But the psychological torment haunted him, forcing him to drown his sorrows in alcohol. Even the booze couldn't help him forget the souls of the two girls he accidentally killed. Meanwhile, at the airport, the former boxer's family brought his 14-year-old daughter from America to Russia because he, Andrew, was about to participate in a major fight. The daughter excitedly asked her dad to take some photos of her for Instagram. The whole family enjoyed a short-lived happiness, unaware of what was about to happen. In the distance, a woman with glasses had her eyes on Becky, the daughter. The family went to the hotel. Andrew focused on studying his opponent. Becky went to the balcony to get a better phone signal. She didn't realize the photographer from earlier had followed her there. The woman started a conversation and suggested Becky go to the ice machine on the second floor to get a stronger signal. After a few minutes, Andrew went to the balcony to look for his daughter, but couldn't find her. Becky left a note for her parents, saying she would go get some ice and be back in 5 minutes. But when Andrew called his daughter, there was no answer. He went down to the ice machine, but she was nowhere to be found. Worried, he ran downstairs to ask the front desk. They told him that a guest was taken to the hospital in an ambulance earlier. This made Andrew even more anxious. He kept thinking that his daughter was kidnapped. He chased after anyone who looked like her, but it wasn't her. He saw someone loading a car and ran to check, but the car was empty. The police were quickly notified and surrounded the suspected bars and clubs. Top news outlets in Russia were reporting the case, and Andrew and his wife offered a $10 reward for anyone who saw their daughter, but all efforts were in vain. They were introduced by the embassy to Samson. Even though he had been hiding for years, his reputation as the best assassin for finding people was still strong. But Samson refused to help, even when Andrew and his wife offered all the money they had left. They even begged him, but Samson's expression didn't change. He told them to rely on the police, not him. But when the couple left, Samson couldn't take his eyes off the missing person poster. He wanted to help Becky, but was afraid he would hurt more innocent children. The person who introduced Andrew and his wife to Samson was his son who worked at the embassy. No matter what, he was a hero in his father's eyes. Andrew continued searching for his daughter. He used his remaining money and was directed by a beggar to a bar across the street, known as the most popular dance club in Mosova. Andrew naively showed the picture of his daughter to the guys in the bar. But this is Russia, not America. The guys thought Andrew was looking for virgin girls. He tried to hold back, but they continued to make vulgar comments. Andrew was already stressed out and also had to deal with these jerks, so he beat them up. He was a professional boxer with a powerful punch, but he was used to fighting one-on-one. He was outnumbered and quickly exhausted. The guys turned the tables on him and beat him up. Andrew was about to die when the lights in the club went out and a figure with glasses and a camera appeared from the shadows, taking out the gangsters one by one. Only Samson could possess such incredible knife skills. The legendary assassin was back. He found Andrew at the club, even without any information about him. That solidified Andrew's trust in Samson's abilities, and Samson agreed to help Andrew and his wife find their daughter. The chief of police warned the couple not to trust Samson, saying he was a lone wolf, obsessed with the target and indifferent to the lives of others. But the police's slow response had left Andrew and his wife with no other choice. True to his nature, Samson acted quickly. He disguised himself as a mailman, went to the villa, pretended to be the gatekeeper, then took out the security guard with a pen poisoned with a tranquilizer. The supervisor inside saw the security camera feed was hacked and immediately ordered his men to be on high alert. Outside, a car sped towards the guards, firing shots. The car was forced to stop, but it was empty. It was a trap. Samson's gun slammed into the back of the supervisor's head. The remaining men quickly evacuated the boss from the villa, but when they went to find the supervisor, they accidentally pulled the trigger of the bomb planted on him. The villa shook with a deafening boom. The boss managed to run out, but was caught in Samson's trap, knocked unconscious with the tranquilizer. When he woke up, his hands and feet were bound, and Samson had carved a message on his stomach, warning him. The boss controlled the underworld in Mozova, so Samson wanted him to help find Becky. The boss had no choice but to agree. As soon as Samson left, the boss called his partner, Bogdanov, a notorious human trafficker. He ordered him to release Becky immediately if they had her by mistake. Samson's bug recorded the entire conversation. He called his son and asked him to trace the number that had contacted the boss. The next morning, Bogdanov went to his cousin's house with a saw and a can of gasoline. Coincidentally, the cousin's girlfriend, who happened to be the photographer who kidnapped Becky, was also there. Bogdanov wanted them to hand over Becky, but the girlfriend refused. She had worked hard to get the good merchandise, and now they didn't need the boss anymore. They only needed the buyer's name card, Stilu. Bogdanov laughed and suddenly pulled out his gun, shooting the girlfriend dead. He then killed his cousin and found Becky locked in the bathroom. The police surrounded the scene. Becky was just a corpse, brutally mutilated in revenge. Samson was horrified. The chief of police scolded him again, calling him a greedy beast, acting on instinct without considering the consequences. That night, everyone at the hospital held their breath waiting for the DNA test results. The doctor came out. The miracle didn't happen. The body belonged to Becky. The mother collapsed and cried. She blamed Samson for angering the mafia and causing them to do this to her daughter. Samson fell into a black hole of despair again. His son tried to comfort him, but he always pushed him away. Samson retreated to his loneliness and his bottle. Panic, guilt, fear, all these emotions overwhelmed him, blinding him and robbing him of his hope. The boss, with his men, came to seek revenge. Samson let them torture him, accepting it as the punishment he deserved. Meanwhile, Andrew and his wife, heartbroken, packed their bags, leaving the hotel in Russia, the country that had taken their only daughter. Everyone resigned themselves to fate, but suddenly Samson remembered the bracelet on the corpse. He noticed something unusual and immediately fought back against the mafia. His son returned at the right time to help his father. They took down the mafia. Samson carefully examined Becky's picture again. He was more certain than ever that the girl was still alive. Samson and his son quickly drove after Andrew and his wife. Right before they entered the airport, Samson stopped them. He explained that he noticed Becky wore her bracelet on her right wrist, but the corpse was wearing it on the left. It was possible that the body was just a look-alike, a poor girl used as a replacement. The kidnapping of an American girl in Russia would make the Russian police investigate thoroughly, so the criminals faked Becky's death to throw off the police. A case would be closed if the victim was dead and the DNA results could be forged. Andrew and his wife trusted Samson again. He broke into the hospital and took the doctor to them. Monica threatened the doctor, forcing him to confess that he had taken a bribe from Stilu to fake the DNA results. Samson froze for a moment when he heard the name Stilu. It was clear that this guy wasn't an ordinary person. Meanwhile, Bogdanov had bypassed the boss to work directly with Stilu. Stilu received a call from the doctor saying everything was exposed. He didn't panic. He calmly ordered Bogdanov to clean up the mess and make sure his name wasn't involved. It turned out that Stilu was the Russian Minister of Defense, so he was worried about his reputation. Back to Samson. He took Andrew and his wife to a safe house his son had prepared. He knew they wanted to participate in the rescue, but he was used to working alone. Their presence would only slow him down. Samson told them not to answer or make any calls from outside. Otherwise, Bogdanov could trace their phone signals and find them. Samson then went out to find the police chief. Although they didn't like each other, the police were corrupted by the mafia. Samson could only trust the chief. He told him the whole situation. Unexpectedly, the chief decided to trust Samson and helped him escape the surveillance of the undercover police. Meanwhile, Becky was still alive and being held captive at the Chinya prison. She was a blonde American girl and a virgin, so she was very valuable to the traffickers. An older girl who often brought her food was also a victim held captive there, but she had become accustomed to it and was now an accomplice to the criminals. Through the window, Becky could see other girls around her age, all trapped there. Just when she was drowning in despair, she noticed that the door to her room wasn't closed properly. She mustered her courage and snuck out. She knew she couldn't escape the maze, so she went to the closet, grabbed her phone, and hid in a wardrobe calling her father. Andrew was overjoyed to hear his daughter's voice. Becky was very smart. She had previously linked the location tracking app from her phone to her computer. All her parents had to do was open the computer, and they would find her location. Outside, the guard noticed something unusual and began searching for Becky. On the other side, Andrew had found his daughter's location. The Chyanea prison was located in the suburbs, away from people, which made it the perfect place for the criminals to operate. Becky was caught again. Andrew and his wife immediately set out to rescue her. At that moment, Samson and his son were digging up the weapons he had hidden, preparing for a big fight. His son had done some research and found out that Stilu needed a large amount of weapons for his secret army, and the supplier loved blonde American girls. So Stilu had kidnapped Becky to please the dealer. A moment later, Samson received a call from Andrew and his wife, informing him that they had left the safe house and were headed to the Chyanea prison. Coincidentally, the prison was near the place where Samson and his son were digging up weapons. After driving all night, Andrew and his wife finally reached the prison. The wife pretended to be lost, distracting the guard so her husband could take him down. They ventured inside, unaware that Bogdanov was watching their every move. It was all a trap. He lured them there so he could easily capture them, and then catch Samson. Sure enough, Samson was there to rescue them. The three of them went inside and found a girl being held captive, but it wasn't Becky. However, the girl knew where Becky was being held and agreed to lead them. As they walked, Samson set off smoke bombs, taking out Bogdanov's men. Bogdanov panicked and sent more reinforcements. He couldn't believe he couldn't take down Russia's top assassin, but he didn't know that Samson had brought some heavy artillery with him. One shot was enough to blow up a few cars and a dozen of his men. Bogdanov couldn't take any more losses. Just when things were getting tense, he received a threatening call from Stilu. Stilu said he was about to be investigated for involvement in human trafficking, so he decided to betray Bogdanov. His final favor to Bogdanov was to tell him that the FBI would be at the prison in an hour. Bogdanov panicked and sent his men to help, then used Becky's phone to call Andrew. He wanted to make a trade. He would release Becky in exchange for the blonde girl, which he planned to use as leverage against Andrew and his wife. The blonde girl then revealed the truth. The dismembered body in the bathtub belonged to her sister. She was only 12 years old, but because she looked like Becky, she became a substitute. No one deserved to die for anyone else. At that moment, Samson had an idea. He went to the camera to reassure Bogdanov that he was under surveillance, while Andrew and his wife took the blonde girl to meet Bogdanov's men. Bogdanov was a sly old fox. On the one hand, he was pretending to make a deal. On the other hand, he was secretly arranging for someone to assassinate Andrew and his wife. But before his men could act, Samson took them all out. Andrew and his wife successfully escaped with their daughter. It turned out that Samson had hacked the camera. He hadn't been standing there obediently. Bogdanov was in panic mode and didn't realize it was just a replay. Outside, the chief of police arrived with his men. The blonde girl was brought to Bogdanov. Suddenly, she pulled out a gun and shot him repeatedly, avenging her sister. Bogdanov's power came to an end. The price he paid for challenging Samson was too high. After this case, Samson no longer suffered from the psychological torment of the two girls' ghosts. He also wouldn't let Stilu off the hook. The man did evil stuff but often went to confession. That gave Samson an opportunity to sit in the priest's chair and judge the devil. The movie ends there. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the channel for more of our